bring in right now Senator Tom Coburn. He's Republican from Oklahoma, and he serves on the Judiciary Committee. But more importantly, Tom has been saying since 1994, I know because I've heard him since 1994, that America is running into a brick wall fiscally. And I want to read you, I'm going to just read you the beginning and the end of a huge op-ed in the New York Times. Senator Coburn, easy money, hard truths. Are you worried that we're passing our debt on to future generations? Well, you need not worry. His conclusion, though we don't know what's going to happen next, the good news for our grandchildren is that they're not going to have to face our debts. We're going to have to face them ourselves. He basically says, Tom, the future is now. Forget about the kids and the grandkids. We're going to be the next Greece if we don't clean up our fiscal house right now. What do you say?
Well, I would agree that we're going to be the next Greece, but there's no way we dig ourselves out. We're not going to pass the amendments to pay for what we're doing, another $230 billion this week, and the first week we come back, we're going to charge it to them. We're in denial. The politicians in this country are in denial. And the fact is we're going to do one of three things. We're either going to default, we're going to inflate our way out of it, or we're going to start making the hard choices that we need to make, which means we can't do everything that we've promised that we can do. We can't do everything we want to do. We got to start doing the things that are most important first and least important last.
Tom, the reason why you're obviously one of my heroes on Capitol Hill is that you lashed out at Republicans, even though you are one, during the Bush years. Will you explain to Americans how there doesn't seem to be the will among leaders on either side once they get in power? What happens to them?
Well, Joe, I think this is a matter of perspective, and I think it's a disease of career politicians. It is, my first degree is in accounting. I'm a physician. I built a business, and I look at things differently than most career politicians. I think you have to make hard choices when it comes. And the leadership is we have a psyche in this country, and it's Democrats and Republicans. You win by doing things on a parochial basis. Well, that's nowhere in the oath that we take. That's not what the country needs. The country needs us making the best right decision for the country as a whole, and let the states fend for themselves rather than have politicians up here trying to advantage one state over the other at the expense of our future. And look, we have a sick process right now, and all you have to do is look what we've done the last 15 years in this country, regardless of who's been in charge, Democrat or Republican, and you can see that we have wasted money. We've poured good money after bad. We've not done the responsible thing. We haven't done the oversight. I heard you all talking about the financial reform. Congress created that mess. The banks didn't. And we're trying to fix it, but we're not even going to wait to know what we really need to do. So, the frustration up here for me is immense because I don't see us treating anything but symptoms. We're not really working at the disease. And so what happens is you cover up the symptoms and the disease gets worse. And we're going to spend, like I said, $230 billion in the next 2 weeks that is not going to be paid for. Total of $500 billion since February 12th, none of it paid for. And our kids, we have to go on an austere budget. But it's still going to impact the future of our children because there's no way we can dig out. We're going to double our debt in 5 years, triple it. And yesterday we heard the gross debt of the United States is already at 90% of GDP, which will suppress our GDP by an additional 1% in terms of what we're going to grow.
Mike Barnacle, it's a nightmare, and I was critical of Bush for 8 years because he doubled the debt. Well, Obama's budget, the IMF says, takes it up even more, goes straight up. We're going to triple our debt from what Obama inherited. Again, it keeps getting worse.
It does keep getting worse.
But it's really not the president's problems, nor Bush nor Obama. If you had members of Congress who really took their oath seriously and actually looked long-term instead of short-term, looked at the nation as a whole instead of parochially, we would not ever have allowed any of that to happen. But what happens is you don't. They're complicit. Because they're not going to be held accountable, and because they're going to kick the can down the road, and they're not going to be here to somebody to say, why in the world did you do that? We now have a $13 trillion debt. We have $120 trillion in unfunded liabilities over the next 75 years. And there is no way, unless we start right now, to fix that.
No
and
way.
we will be Greece. We're going to look over the precipice. After Greece and several others in Europe have fallen, after Japan collapses because they can't afford their debt, the money's rushing in here now, giving us an area of comfort. But what's going to happen in 2 or 3 years, that money's going to rush back out, and we're going to be looking over the precipice, and we will have not done what we need to do.
Mike Barnacle.
Senator, you mentioned hard choices. You use the phrase long-term, looking down the road. Why is it, though, that seemingly everyone in your body and on the other side of Capitol Hill in the House, they are so reluctant to use the word taxes? Eventually, won't some tax, have to be raised over the next 3 to 4 to 5 years?
I don't think so. Look, we've got $350 billion in discretionary waste a year right now. Duplicative programs, fraud, abuse. I mean, it's documented. But we don't have the will to go after it. I mean, look, $120 billion in Medicaid and Medicare fraud per year, and we didn't do a dang thing about it when we fixed health care, supposedly? I mean, we're incompetent. We shouldn't be tried. I wonder who the 23% of the American people are that trust us. They have no reason to trust us.
That's a good soundbite.
All right, we got to go. Real quick, Jim Cramer.
Senator Coburn, I know you're a huge fan of Mad Money. Send it to the Journal. How about this idea? This is one that'll work. A $2 trillion 30-year bond offering right now, because as you said, the money could flow back, but we could get it at 3 3/4. The Chinese will buy it. 3 3. We could do $2 trillion. You know that. Why don't you give that to Geithner and Ben?
Well, we've talked about it. We need to extend the maturity of our debt, or we're going to really be in a big
problem. But you're the guy who can do it. You're the most sophisticated guy in the Senate. They don't want to pay the short-term cost. The administration won't buy that because it's $125 billion more a year in interest costs. That's why. You know it's a long-term saving, and you're the only guy. You've got this financial reform. He has been the man. Senator Coburn knows more than anybody.
All right. Hey, Tom, thank you so much. We always love talking to you.
Thank you
Good to see you.
very much.
Take care.